next work session is the VDOT Resident Engineer update. Ms. Worley.
Hi. Good afternoon. All right, just by way of introduction, my name's Rebecca Worley. I'm the resident engineer for VDOT's Chesterfield Residency, and I'll be sharing some information on our maintenance and engineering services that we offer out of our residency office today. So just an overview of an agenda. These are some of the topics I'm going to cover, just an overview of the inventory that we maintain within Chesterfield County, as well as maintenance services we offer, VDOT's paving program, some historical information on the paving program and looking forward, and our engineering services. So in Chesterfield County, we maintain over 4,400 lane miles of roadway, and you can see the breakdown there of interstate, primary, and secondary routes. I will say secondary is probably out of date because we accept a lot of new roads in Chesterfield County. On a monthly basis. It's usually between 5 and 10 miles every month that we're accepting into our system. We also maintain 396 structures and bridges in Chesterfield County, and Chesterfield County has the second largest road network in Virginia, second only to Fairfax. So this is just an overview of residency staff and area headquarters that we have to maintain that inventory. Chesterfield Residency serves not only Chesterfield County, but also Powhatan County and Amelia County. And you can see a breakdown of our maintenance area headquarters that we have. We have one each in Amelia and Powhatan County, and we have 5 maintenance area headquarters just for Chesterfield County and those 4,000 plus lane miles. Additionally, my residency has a specialty maintenance and construction crew that serves all 3 counties. They rotate around as needed. And our residency is also supported by a Richmond District maintenance team that includes a pavement management group, a structure and bridge team, an interstate maintenance office that maintains all of the limited access roadways in the Richmond District, as well as a roadside management team. So just to highlight a few of the maintenance services we offer, we do mowing on all secondary and primary, as well as interstate maintenance does the limited access routes in Chesterfield County, including site distance improvements at intersections, drainage improvements, ditches, and pipes that we maintain under the roadway, pavement repairs, concrete and sidewalk repairs. We maintain a lot of sidewalk in the county as well. Sign and signal repairs, tree trimming and tree removal of hazardous trees that may impact the roadway, as well as snow removal and incident response, so working traffic control for incidents on the roadway. So just to dive a little bit deeper into a couple of our maintenance items, just an overview of our mowing practices at VDOT. We do have a maintenance best practices manual that dictates a lot of our maintenance items and how frequently they are to be performed. So for mowing, we perform 3 cycles of mowing, typically between mid-April to November. And in Chesterfield County specifically, on narrow medians, we do maintain those a little more frequently just to alleviate any site distance concerns. And all of the median mowing routes, that first cycle of mowing was completed in early May. In addition to those 3 cycles of mowing, we also address site distance complaints out of cycle. So if a citizen calls into our 1-800 customer service center and says there's a site distance complaint at an intersection, we'll address that in a more timely manner than waiting for the mowing cycle to come around. And finally, we also maintain a lot of stormwater management basins throughout the county. We have 195 of them in our inventory in the county, and that is also growing with the number of transportation projects that the county is performing throughout the county, we accept stormwater management basins into our inventory as well. Street sweeping is another service that we provide. We worked with Chesterfield County several years ago, I believe, to identify over 200 shoulder miles of what we call welcome mat sweeping in the county. So a lot of the major primary routes as you enter Chesterfield County. We lease a sweeper in our residency and tend to address those higher volume roadways at night when traffic is not as large of a concern. And then during the day, we're taking that sweeper into subdivisions or addressing work orders on lower volume roadways, keeping that sweeper running 24 hours a day for the approximately 6 months that we're leasing it. Just to touch on emergency operations, so these are just a few of the things that we can anticipate having to deal with on an annual basis. So in the midst of our more routine maintenance, we've got to be prepared for hurricanes, tropical storms, flooding, incident management, as well as snow. And I'll just say for hurricanes, we just had our hurricane preparedness meeting yesterday. Hurricane season starts June 1st, and I hope that we never have to reverse the lanes on 64 to evacuate folks from Virginia Beach, but we're prepared to if we need to. And then snow for us is really a year-round operation. We're already preparing for the next snow season, while we're grateful that we didn't have much of it this past year. So to touch a little bit more on planned routine maintenance and some changes that VDOT has made recently and are focusing on in the future. In 2019, VDOT conducted a comprehensive review of our maintenance and operations program. This was done at our central office level, so not just specific to Chesterfield. And some of the takeaways from that comprehensive review were the need for VDOT to focus more on a proactive approach to maintenance. We have a 1-800 number where people can call in complaints 24 hours a day, and we service those complaints, but over time we've become very reactive to those and not so focused on our routine maintenance that needs to be done on a regular basis. So that was kind of one of the big takeaways from that comprehensive study, as well as developing performance metrics for our maintenance program for some key maintenance items that need to be performed on a regular basis. So this is a list of the 10 maintenance items that were identified as ones that needed performance metrics with targets for us to hit, including mowing, tree trimming, a lot of stormwater management, so pipes, ditches, stormwater facilities, treatment of unpaved roads and shoulders, signs, signals, and pavement markings. And they established target frequencies of how often we're supposed to touch each of those assets that we maintain. And I think it's important to note that VDOT has set these target frequencies, but also identified that at this point we don't have the resources available to hit those targets. And so in fiscal year 24, VDOT has allocated additional maintenance funding for our program and highlighted a few of these metrics that they want us to spend that additional funding on in an effort to get closer to the target. So for Chesterfield County, that's an additional $2.2 million in my budget. And that's also for Amelia and Powhatan, not just for Chesterfield, but we'll be using it for tree trimming, pipe repairs and replacements, ditching operations, unpaved shoulder operations, and stormwater management basin rehab. So those are the 5 main items that we'll be spending that additional allocation on in the next fiscal year. So a brief overview of our paving program. So I'll touch on targets similar to the performance maintenance metrics that I mentioned. We also have targets for pavement condition that we're focusing on meeting. as well as some of our historical lane mile accomplishments, and then I'll share our public paving map that's available in ArcGIS. So this is an overview of the pavement management targets that have been established by VDOT Central Office. So you'll see that they're broken out by the classification of the roadway. Interstate having a target of 82% sufficiency, all the way down to secondaries with an average annual daily traffic of less than 3,500, a lot of subdivisions, with a target sufficiency of 60%. And then on the right side, you'll see where our current sufficiency rating is. This is just for Richmond District. I don't have it broken out for Chesterfield County specifically. But you'll see where we currently sit in comparison to that target. And I will say these targets are what predict what we're funding in the future. So you'll see, for example, that our current sufficiency in Richmond District on interstates is 91.2%, and the target is only 82%, where we are not meeting our targets in subdivisions. So in the future, there's more of a shift of taking some of that money that was previously spent on interstates and putting it in subdivisions to help increase that sufficiency so that we're meeting that 60% target. This is, I think I shared this last year, but I only shared the year that we were actually paving, and I thought this year it'd be helpful to see a few years worth of data, what we've accomplished in terms of lane miles on each roadway classification, and also where we're currently planning for 2024. So you can see from last year to this year, we've significantly increased the number of lane miles for, this is Chesterfield County specifically, this is just paving in Chesterfield County. So last year we accomplished 117 lane miles. This year, we will be accomplishing 225 lane miles, and next year we're projected to accomplish over 300 lane miles in Chesterfield County. And this is a combination of things. It's investing more money in Chesterfield County, recognizing that we're not currently hitting our sufficiency targets, but it's also taking a closer look at the treatment type that we're using. So asphalt plant mix, mill and fill operations are very expensive. And so in order to get the most bang for our buck, we're doing a lot of thinner treatments, cape seals, slurry seal, latex treatments, which extend the life of the pavement, but it's not as costly as a traditional mill and fill operation. And then I'll just share, this is our statewide paving status map. This is updated by our construction team while paving is being completed. And it gives you an idea of what is currently planned, what work is in progress, and what has already been completed. And it includes contact information for the construction manager for each of those projects. This information is all available to the public on virginiaroads.org. And so anyone has access to this to see what paving is upcoming this year. And it also includes historical data from the last 5 years of resurfacing schedules as well. So getting away from maintenance into some more of the engineering services we offer. Just an overview, we have a state force construction program in the residency. We perform plan review of roadway projects, traffic engineering studies, and then we have a lot of land development. So I'll go into a few more details on those items. So our state force construction project, these are our maintenance and specialty crew employees who are actually doing the construction work for things like rural rustics, where we're hard surfacing gravel roads, rural additions, where we're taking either private or county maintained roads into the state system and doing construction improvements as part of that street acceptance. And then we also have some other construction projects that pop up that it might not be economically feasible to advertise to a contractor. And so we'll partner with the county to figure out what the best way to do that is. One example was the Woodpecker Road safety improvements. We performed a collection of things: tree trimming, sign improvements, edgeline rumble strips, and some guardrail installation. And all of that was accomplished with just a combination of our own maintenance crews or on-call contracts that we had available, so that we didn't have to, it was probably too small of a contract for a contractor to have an appetite for it, so we accomplished it with our existing forces. And then we're also doing plan review for roadway projects. So anytime the county or VDOT is administering a roadway project in Chesterfield County, my office reviews it for any future maintenance items that we see as potential issues in the future, to try to get those corrected before construction. Some traffic engineering services. We work in our office with our traffic engineering group to conduct traffic studies. Again, we receive a lot of these through our work order system. This fiscal year to date, so a 10-month period basically, we've received 427 requests just in Chesterfield County for things like speed studies, signal studies, pedestrian improvements, curve advisories. And so we handle a lot of those at the residency and then reach out to traffic engineering for assistance as well. If there are regulatory signs involved, we have to have a signed and sealed study for that. Additionally, we do roadway safety audits and assessments. VDOT has an agreement with FHWA that routes on a paving schedule that are receiving federal funding have to have a roadway safety assessment performed on them to review things like signage and pavement markings that may need to be addressed. And so my residency staff, once those RSAs are completed, we're responsible for implementing all of the sign and pavement marking improvements that are recommended. And then occasionally we have some corridor-specific requests. We just recently had one for Old Gun Road that was requested by Senator Hashmi and Delegate Adams. And we anticipate that that roadway safety audit will kick off in June for, again, a review of safety on the entire corridor. Land development. My staff is responsible for reviewing all site and subdivision plans that involve work in the VDOT right-of-way or potential acceptance of new roadways into our system. So far this fiscal year, we've reviewed 577 site and subdivision plans in the first 10 months of the fiscal year. We also provide comments to the county for any zoning or conditional use applications that involve transportation-related matters. Again, so far this fiscal year, we've provided 130 comments on zoning cases. We also see an increasing number in permit projects that our land development staff is reviewing. With the advent of the Central Virginia Transportation Authority, localities are performing a lot more projects with just local dollars. And so Chesterfield in particular is doing a lot of those as permit projects rather than running it through the typical VDOT project development process. So my staff is reviewing all of those plans as well. And then we issue land use permits for anyone, citizens, contractors, developers, anyone who's doing community enhancement, anyone who's doing work within the VDOT right-of-way. And we've issued over 1,000 in the first 10 months of the fiscal year, and then we provide inspection services on those to make sure that their work zones are set up correctly and that they're meeting construction standards with any work in the right-of-way. Just a list of a few resources that are available. The Virginia Traffic is just a way we put all of our work zones in this system so citizens can be aware of any potential impacts to their commutes if there's a work zone on their normal route. VDOT does offer a Board of Supervisors manual that is just kind of a quick reference guide to some common VDOT activities, a lot of the stuff that I covered today. A link to our work order system where you can submit a work order online. as well as the statewide paving status map that I mentioned earlier. And I'll just end with this slide with availability of phone numbers for people to call in to either our 24-hour 1-800 number, or if you would prefer to speak to one of my employees at my office, the local Chesterfield residency number as well during business hours. We also accept walk-in customers Monday to Friday at our office on Speaks Drive. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Board members, any questions? Dr. Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Discussing Old Gun.
Yes, sir.
In that, of course, we recently had a couple fatalities there. And what I have noticed is that there's a pattern with any road that has the word old in it. So if it's Old Buckingham or Old Gun or Old Bonaire or Old Otterdale, that all of those roads are all narrow and windy. And I'm curious to know what would be your thoughts on putting out some sort of a information, at least reminding people that if the road starts with the name Old, that is what it's going to mean. It's going to be narrow and it's going to be curvy. So I'm curious to know what your thoughts are on that.
So for Old Gun Road specifically, I think that part of the RSA will really be reviewing ways to inform people to slow down, to recognize that there might not be as wide of shoulders available for people who may start to run off the road to recover. And so I don't know that it's specific to the names of the roads. VDOT doesn't name the roads, we just give them a route number. But I don't think there's anything wrong with reminding people of what the posted speed limit is, and reviewing curb signage to make sure that people know what the appropriate speed is to enter those curves.
Yeah, thank you for that. I just think that I've noticed a pattern in Chesterfield County. If it has the word old in front, it's really something about slowing down.
Sure.
And making sure that I think a study needs to be done not just for Old Gun, but for all those other roads also.
Mm-hmm.
They are so narrow and so dangerous. So just something to consider. The other question I have is with regard to communication.
Mm-hmm.
When you're getting ready to do a paving, or whenever you're going to be changing a traffic pattern. The one I'm thinking about specifically is on Polo Parkway,
Mm-hmm.
and there was pretty much a road diet where we're putting in bike lanes. And so I'm curious to know how you communicate that to the community, because what happened was when that process got started, all of a sudden I received a dozen phone calls because no one was aware. Or it just wasn't clear. And I think there was another piece of the puzzle in that when they were putting down the actual bike stencil, they were 3 weeks behind in actually having the stencil, which confused a lot of people. So I'm curious about two parts. One is about just communication. How are you communicating it to the community? How can we help to ensure that occurs? And then also ensuring that when it is a new traffic pattern, that you have everything in hand, so it's not going to be broken down over a month and everyone's confused.
Understood. Yeah, so we have participated in several road diets like Polo Parkway with Chesterfield County. In those circumstances, Chesterfield County Transportation Department actually oversaw the study and the plan development for the striping and signage plan. And then VDOT just performed the work on our resurfacing schedule. It's a good way to save cost. We're already in there paving and restriping. The county gives us plans for that road diet, and we can do a change order to our contract to do that. So primarily, we've relied on Chesterfield County to handle the communication regarding the study and the change to the roadway. We can definitely put out portable changeable message boards in advance of those paving operations and changes to traffic control devices. But I think in the past, the county has sent out notifications to the community as well to let them know about that in advance. You're absolutely right about the availability of the stencil for the bike lanes. That's not an item that we typically have on our paving contracts, so it had to be work ordered into that contract kind of at the last minute, which is why there was a delay in getting them down. We are working with the county already on road diets for next year so that when we have those striping plans, we can insert them into the contract originally rather than doing a change order. And that way the contractor is aware in advance that there will be a need for those bike symbols. And so there won't be a rush at the last minute to get their hands on them. So we're hoping that that will help next year, that advanced planning that we're doing with county transportation.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Winslow.
Thank you. Ms. Worley, I just want to say thank you, first of all, for being so willing to meet with constituents. As you pointed out in your presentation, we have a lot of subdivisions that are, looking a lot like alligator backs throughout the county. And I do want to note and also thank on the record the Secretary of Transportation, Mr. Miller, for his work in directing more funds toward road maintenance. We visited him very purposefully last year twice, and then we have now seen some more funds coming our way. And I do think that's noteworthy for citizens as they wait patiently for their share of road improvements in their neighborhood. So I wanted to ask, in terms of pedestrian safety throughout the county, this is something that we get a lot of inquiries on, all of us on this board. Is there an effort underway to study pedestrian safety throughout the county? Is it more of a piecemeal project by project, or is there a more comprehensive look at this? Because this is something that affects all of us, and anytime someone gets injured or worse crossing a road, it's something that's of concern to every citizen in the county. So we just want to make sure that we're doing everything we can do in conjunction with VDOT to support safe crossings.
Sure. Yeah, so we do have identified PSAP corridors, so Pedestrian Safety Action Plan corridors, throughout Chesterfield County. And our signals section specifically has been very active in funding signal improvements. And essentially, anytime we touch a signal now, we add pedestrian accommodations to it. And their focus has really been on those PSAP corridors where there's been a history of pedestrian incidents. Route 1 is a big one in Chesterfield County. And so they are actively looking at replacing signals and including pedestrian accommodations at those crossings.
Mr. Engel.
First, if I come across a little frustrated, I'm sorry it's coming to you, but you're the one that's coming to talk to us. So, we talked a little bit about the increase in funds for neighborhoods, which is great, but 60% is the passing grade, basically, that VDOT's given itself for the roads in neighborhoods, and that's a pretty low bar. I know you didn't set the bar, but I'm glad that there's money going in to improve the neighborhoods. One thing I think you've done a great job on, or VDOT's done a great job on, is when potholes are reported, they get filled quickly. Unfortunately, many times they get filled with a hot patch that doesn't last as long as any of us would like them to, and they don't get followed up behind that. So the same pothole ends up getting reported year after year after year. So don't know, at least when they are reported, you do get a hot patch in there so that the hole's not sitting there. But I'd love to see some more follow-up on that. And I'm going to give you some latitude on the subdivision roads and hope that with the additional funding, we'll start to see some better maintenance in those areas. I have, as Mr. Winslow talked about, the pedestrian walkways. I've also had a lot of inquiries, especially in my district, on protected bikeways. And I don't know how to do that because they want something that's a solid barrier for bicycles and or people walking, but the bikes typically, the bike paths tend to be right on the side of the drive path. And I know that the state doesn't allow a protected barrier in that path, but is there anything being done within the state anywhere to look at how we can protect the bikeways?
I think that probably more of the emphasis going forward is on shared use paths with an off-road facility. And that's the way of providing that bike facility with a buffer space rather than having, because the problem is it's a fixed object in the roadway, which is why we can't allow a physical barrier there. Where if you just provide that buffer space, that's a way to get that without having a physical barrier in the roadway. So I would imagine that would be more of the emphasis on projects going forward for bike facilities.
It's just going to be hard where roads are tight.
Right.
There's not a lot of space, and maybe there's already a sidewalk in to be able to achieve that. But I know that, especially on Route 10, there's areas where bikes have been hit, where they were in their bike travel lane. And part of that, I think, also goes to, I think you're working a little bit harder on it now, but sweeping the bike lanes, because when there's debris, they have to ride closer to the roadway, the travel path of the vehicles, and that puts them more at risk as well. So stepping up that sweeping for the bike paths would be very much appreciated in my district. And again, we have the bus route on Route 1, and frustrating things of getting in benches, trash cans, and shelters along that bus route. And future routes that we'll have in the county is all of them have to be breakaway as well. And I had a citizen, when I tried to explain that, look at me and said, so these engineers design things for cars to be okay, not the people that are using them. And so I just have to share that frustration that that's what the citizens hear when they hear something has to be breakaway. It can't be protective for bikes. It's about protecting a car from damage more so than protecting the people that need that protection. So I just wanted to share their frustration, and I appreciate you listening.
Any other board members?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I do have comments, but in brevity, I think we probably should give you 30 minutes next time. I'm advocating for that. 30 minutes for your presentation. Transportation is pretty important. We all have something to say there. Just first of all, thank you for your proactive nature. That's the one thing that I get really frustrated with government not being proactive in a lot of areas, and especially in transportation. Do it before it. That's vision. Let's do some vision. Also, secondary roads, the numbers, when you look at those numbers and it's 6 or 7%, that's frustrating. I mean, that's why my citizens are frustrated. And so I don't want to come off as angry, but I'm disappointed at that point. And I know we can do better. And finally, the roundabout at Kingsland and Hopkins, you know, I actually saw an elderly lady. I was there, go on the left of that roundabout. I said, she has no idea how to navigate it. She could have been killed had a car been coming the other way. That was dangerous. So that roundabout, the shrubbery in there, I thought was unnecessary. And when you look at other roundabouts like at Virginia State, Temple Avenue, you don't see anything there. So I'm very frustrated with that, and I hope that we can get those things resolved. But I'm well aware of the secondary maintenance monies. I remember when it was $10 million, then it became $1 million a year, as our CDOT knows. But we got to do better with our neighborhood roads. I just want to say that.
I will add at Hopkins and Kingsland, we are going to add pavement markings in the roundabout itself to try to make it clear to people to stay to the right of that center island. So that's been scheduled and hopefully will occur within the next couple weeks.
Let's get that improved.
Thank you for being here. Of course, you know I have a lot of road issues in Matoka. So I have a couple of questions. One, it was asked of me of a citizen as to why, when we did the road improvements for Horsepen Creek and Otterdale Branch Creek and Blackman Creek, when we had the road shut down, why did we not repave the sections of Otterdale Road between those those roads as we had them fixed when they were shut down. And so if you could give a brief explanation for the community as to why we didn't do that. And that's a VDOT responsibility, not the county responsibility. We took the money and set it aside to actually fix those bridges because it was a public safety issue. But the maintaining of the roads between where we did the project really falls on VDOT.
Yes, sir. So prior to the county taking on that Otterdale Drainage Improvement Project, we did do a couple patching locations on Otterdale closer to Blackman Creek, places that we thought really couldn't make it through the construction that you all had planned. And then really our goal was once the county completed all of the bridge projects, we have Otterdale Road from Genito to Woolridge, I believe, on the paving schedule for 2024. So by next paving season, Chesterfield County will be completed with all of your bridge replacement projects, and then we'll fill in the gaps on paving in our next paving season.
Thank you. Next question. There is a section I would like you all to take a look at between Otterdale and Duval as you go west to where the new entrance is to the back end of Mag Green. There have been an increase in truck traffic back there, which has caused the road to crumble and many new potholes to develop. And it may be a situation where you may have to do a 500-foot patch there, but I'm getting a lot of complaints as to the condition of that road as people are moving through that particular area. And then I do appreciate the email I got the other day on the traffic improvements for the intersection of Beach Road and Riverway Road. And if you could talk a little bit about that for the community, because it's been a very dangerous intersection for a long time. They tried to redesign it years ago, and it's still a failed intersection, in my opinion, because of the design. And I think we're looking at that in the future for a roundabout and a speed adjustment, because I know it's a 45-mile-an-hour zone on Beach Road in Riverway. And really it has to do with the fact that, and also looking at the email that you sent, the last traffic study that was done was in 2019, and I think we need to have an updated traffic study on Riverway and Beach as well, because we've had growth out there and increased people moving in out there, that I think those numbers are a lot higher. So if you could talk about that.
Sure. Yes. So our traffic engineering team completed a fatal crash review following the fatality that occurred at that intersection on Christmas Eve. And they made recommendations for many signage and striping improvements, including flashing lights on the stop ahead sign on Riverway, as well as at the stop sign itself on Riverway, because we had seen a history in the crashes of people disregarding the stop sign. You come in at kind of a strange angle, so you might not anticipate that coming up on that stop sign, so hopefully those flashing lights will assist. And then additionally, some striping for the right turn coming from Beach onto Riverway. Currently, it's basically a free flow. You don't have much deflection when you're making that right turn. You can kind of go straight. And so they've recommended pavement markings as well as some flexible post to make that right turn have more deflection to hopefully slow traffic down, making that right turn onto Riverway, which we think will also assist at that intersection. The pavement markings and striping have been scheduled hopefully for next week, and the flashing lights are on order. So as soon as we receive those, we'll have those installed as well.
Thank you. And I know that VDOT doesn't like to do this because they do a traffic study and they said, well, 85 percentile of the speed limit is this, and well, the people going through an intersection are doing this, and that's why we set a speed limit for this. But I'm telling you, it should be 35. Coming from Crump's store until you get past Company 19 through that intersection, it should be 35. Because if it's 45, people are going 55. You can hear the engines revving up as soon as they pull through the intersection. I know that because I go through it all the time. And that would help, I think, to alleviate some of the crashes in that area as well. And I know that that's one of my frustrations, quite frankly, with the way some of the transportation issues work here in Virginia, that the localities actually don't have any flexibility in that. Now, Henrico does because they take care of all their roads. We have to rely on VDOT. But I do think, and this is something I am going to talk to legislators about, that the localities need to have some input in relating to this. As an example, we talked about trying to put a stop sign or a three-way T at Otterdale and Duval, and we were denied that ability. And now we have a PSA working out there in the mornings to try and move the traffic flow through. Now, I'm not saying that's your fault, but that's the process that we have to go through, and I think it's a flawed process. But I really appreciate you being here today, and I hope we didn't beat you up too much.
Yes,
But
sir.
but I do think your explanation of how VDOT things work for the community is extremely important. Thank you.
Thank you.